Welcome back to a brand new episode of Mastering Programming. In today's episode, I'll show you how you can create different kinds of text fields. As you can see, we have an underlined text field with a photo. We have this kind of like chunky, shadowy text field. We have this very basic, but the one that I actually personally use a lot is just a very casual corner radius one. And then you've got a few other choices that SwiftUI just allows you to use off the bat, like this one and that one. If this is something that you really wanted to learn, please make sure you leave a like and a subscribe and continue watching until the end. Let's get started. Welcome back, guys. Now, as you can see, I am in Xcode already. It might look a little bit different, and that's just because I'm using the new one. So if I just go over here, oops, sorry, not this one. If I just click on here, Xcode, about Xcode, I'm just using version 13. It might look a little bit different, but everything else it is going to be basically exactly the same. So the first thing we want to do is we actually just want to create a normal text field just to see how that looks like. So I'm going to remove this, and in order to work with this, I'm just going to create first a variable over here at state var, and I'm going to say text field 1 is equal to, and I'll just put an empty string. Now, the reason I did that is because we actually need to use that in order to reference other text fields. I'm also going to be creating a VStack, just like this, and then adding a scroll view. And that's because we're going to be adding multiple text fields. So I just want to make sure that we're actually going to be able to fit all those different text fields with the different styles. So I'm going to go back over here to my scroll view, and I'm going to add our first text field. And to do that, let's just type in text field, just like this. There we go. And I'm going to enter some placeholder text here. So we can put something like enter your name. And after that, we're going to put a comma. We're going to put text, a $sign, and then we're going to reference back text field 1. So I'm going to click on text field 1, and that's basically what we created. So this is our first text field. It's a very normal text field, and I'm going to run this app on my phone just to show you how that would look like. Alright, so as you can see, this is on my actual real device, and obviously this is a text field that you would never want in your app. It's just so empty, there's nothing to it. You can still use it exactly the same, but it's just too empty. It doesn't look good. No one would even notice that a text field is there. So let's go back into Xcode and start by changing that. So I'm going to go back into Xcode here, and the first thing we want to do is maybe just subtle changes. But before that, let's just add some text in the VStack before the scroll view and just say text fields. And this will just help the alignment just so that it's not all the way at the top. After that, we can actually start working. So I'm going to remove this. Let's go ahead and create our second text field. And what I'm going to do for this text field is I'm just going to add an image next to it. So to do that, I'm going to be adding a H-stack, just like this. I'm going to be adding image, and then I'll say system name, like this. And after that, I'm going to be putting another text field. So I can probably just copy this and paste it over here. Let's create another state. So I'm going to say at state var text field 2 is equal to an empty string. And in here, we can pass that. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it right over here. There we go. Perfect. So now if I run this, it will be actually empty because we didn't pass in what image we want. So the image that I want is over here in the SF symbols, and it's basically just a search icon. So now we're just creating two things together. So let's go ahead and see what it's called. Magnifying, I think. Yep, there it is. We can just copy the name, go back, and pass it over here. So now if I actually run this again, what we'll see now are the two different text fields. Basically, we'll have the enter your name. I can just probably show you. Let's go back. Here you have two different kinds of text fields. You've got this first one, enter your name, and you got one that is accompanied by an image. We can also go back to the VStack and add a padding just to make sure that everything is actually fitting within the correct frame of the screen rather than having things to move. So I can just show you. Now it's not stuck. And you can see it's working a little bit better, but it's still not really a design that I would want in my app. No one can properly decide whether this is a text field or just normal text. So let's change that. Let's start on working on some designs. Alright, so now we want to add a rounded corner. So we will basically want to add a border to our text field, and we also want it to be a little bit curved. Just something that you would actually start seeing in a real text field. And I also want to keep that search icon, or maybe change it by something else. So let's say we're asking the user to enter the email. What we're going to do is we're again going to copy this H stack, just like that, copy it. I'm going to paste it after. For the image, let's change the magnifying glass with something else. So if it's an email, then it would make sense for us to use an envelope. Is that what they call it? Yes, an envelope. And maybe we can just use this one. I'm going to right click, copy name, let's go back, pass it through. Now for the text field, in order for it to be the same way we want it, what we can do is we can go next to it and we can put a dot and we can say text field style. And inside of here, we can pass more text field styles. In our case, we're going to be saying something like rounded border text field style, just like this, and 2 parentheses at the end. Let's just give it a second to make sure that this goes away, and it did. Now let's go ahead and run this, and we will start finally seeing some nice text field, something different. So let's just go back. There it is. Finally, we can now see that if our user sees this, they will straight away know that this is a text field. It does look different than the other two. Not just does it have a photo, but it also has that nice border to it, which I think actually defines whether or not this is a text field or not. And we can type things, and obviously it's writing in the top one because we linked it to the same one. So let's go and just change that. I'm gonna change this to a state var text field 3, and we can just go ahead and replace this 2 with a 3. Now that problem is fixed. Let's move on. And now you can ask me, well, what do we want to add now? And what I want to add now is I want to create a text field that sort of hovers over the screen. It has its own design. I would say something like something you would find on Tinder or something. I don't use it, but I don't have friends that do. So let's go ahead and actually start doing that. It's actually much easier than you'd think. Okay, so to do this part, what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to have to add an extension to the text field, and that will just allow me to apply it to any other text field rather than screaming this whole area with text field styles. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go all the way to the end where there's no more brackets or anything like that, and I'm going to say struct oval text field style. You can call this anything you want. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to put 2 dots. I'm going to say text field style, open and close a bracket just like this. And then I'm going to say func. I'm going to put an underscore. I'll say body. I'll open a bracket and say configuration just like this. Inside of here, I'm going to put text field. We'll open and close 2 arrows just like this. Inside of that, we'll say self dot underscore label, and then we already have that closed just like this. After that, we're going to put a dash, an arrow, and we're going to say some view, open and close another bracket, and now we can actually start putting that configuration, so our styling and how we want it. Don't worry about the errors, we'll fix it and everything. So now we can say things like configuration just like that, and inside of here we can put things like padding. So now you can actually personalize this completely. I'm just going to personalize it so that it looks like an oval, but you can actually go ahead and change this whichever way you want it. So we're going to put dot padding. We also want to give it a background, so I'm going to put dot background, and I'm going to say a linear gradient just like this. I'll open a bracket. Inside of here I can pass in a gradient. For the gradient, I'll just pass in gradient, open a bracket, put colors, and here I'm just going to put the color dot red, and maybe also the color dot orange, or actually let's start with orange, comma, and then color dot red just like this. We also need to put this in 2 boxes just like this. That should dismiss some of the errors. For the starting point, we're going to put dot top leading just like that, and for the end point, well, we're going to put bottom dot trailing. So I'm going to put dot bottom trailing just like this. Now let's just wait a second to see why we still have some errors. Okay, so I realized what was the issue. Ignore this change that I did, so let's put it back to a small b. And for the label, believe it or not, that's actually the issue. If we change it to a capital L just like this, we should actually manage to get rid of the errors. So now we've got that, and now that works. So now let's actually bring this and actually try and use it. But before that, I want to add a few things. I want to add a corner radius. So I'm going to put dot corner radius, and for the corner radius, I'm going to put 20. For the shadow, because you're also going to be adding a shadow, I'll say dot shadow, just like this. For the color, we can probably use something like gray. For the radius, we can use 10, and I'm actually not going to be putting anything else, so just like this. Now, if we run this right now, nothing is going to happen because we're not applying it to anything. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add text. I'm just going to put it as empty, just so that we have different spacing. And then I'm just going to create another text field. I'm simply going to put text field. And I'll close and open and close a bracket. Inside of here, I'll just say enter a name. And then I'll put here text. And inside of here, I'm just going to reference to any of the ones we created. We don't need to create one again. And to do that, I can just put a $, text field 1, dot. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be saying text field style. And then, because we created this under text field style, we can actually now reference this. So I'm just going to copy it over text field style. And I'm going to pass it over here, open and close a bracket. And let's see if there's going to be any issues. And there isn't. So now I'm going to run this app again. And now we should be able to see that fresh look to it that basically we created from scratch right now. There you go. So it's completely different. Now we're entering some really nice personalization where not a lot of people will actually have this in your app. You can click on it. It's completely interactive the same exact way. And it just looks different. It has a nice shadow to it. It's big, it's large, it has a gradient, something that I really like. Let's move forward, and we're going to be creating more text fields. So the text field that we're going to be creating now is actually a text field that I personally use in a lot of the apps that I'm creating. And that's just basically an underlined text field. Now I know it sounds basic, but I personally feel like it actually adds a very simplistic and nice touch to the app. So let's go ahead and create just an empty text, just so that we can have that space. And yes, I understand it's not the most ideal way of creating space, but it does work very quick. So let's go ahead, and now in order to actually do this, first we need to create an extension. So I'm going to go at the very end of the line, on line 58 for me. So I'm going to go ahead and type in extension, and then I'll put view, I'll open and close a bracket. And inside of that, we can actually put that function that we can call to customize our text field. So I'm going to be putting func, just like this, and then I'm going to be saying underline text field, just like this. I'm going to open and close a bracket. I'm going to add a dash, an arrow, and then add some view. I'll open and close another bracket. Inside of here, I'm simply going to say self, and then I'm going to be saying dot padding. So again, we need to add that padding. This time we're actually going to be adding a vertical padding with a value of 10. After that, we can add an overlay. So I'll put dot overlay, just like this. Inside of here, we want that overlay to be a rectangle, and we want to give it a frame. For the width, we're actually going to leave it to be exactly as it is, which means it's just going to fill as much as it can. For the height, we can put it as 2. For the alignment, we can actually remove the alignment, but we also need to add a padding. So I'm going to say dot padding. Inside of here, I'm going to add the padding from the top, and I'm going to give it a value of 35. After that, we need to give it a foreground color, so the color of that underlaying. And to do that, I'm going to be putting a dot, and then I'll say foreground color. Inside of here, you can actually pass in any color that you want. I'm going to put color dot black for this, and that means it's just going to be an underline of black, or maybe we can do something cool and put it as blue, maybe, just to show you the actual difference. After that, finally, we're going to add one final padding with a value of 10. Now let's go ahead and actually start using what we just did. So I'm going to go back over here. I will create another text field. I'll simply say text field, enter an age, put comma, put in text, a $, and then I'm going to be saying any of them. Honestly, I'll just use 3. Again, just like with all of them, we're going to say text field style, just like this. And inside of here, we can actually pass in that field that we created, which is just says underline text field view. So let me show you how. Oh, actually, sorry, for this one, we actually don't need to do it that way. Instead, we can simply put it straight away. So I'm going to say underline text field. And that means I can actually run this right now and it will be underlined. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to run this and let's have a look. As you can see, it is actually an underlined text field. I can click on it and I can interact with it. But in my opinion, to make this worthwhile, we also need to add a photo, which just sort of makes it clear that this is a text field that you can use. So I'm going to go back over here and I'm actually going to be placing that text field inside of a H stack like this, open and close a bracket. I will be putting the text field, but I'm actually going to leave the underline to be under the H stack and not the text field itself. And then I'm going to be adding an image, system name, and maybe let's just use something different. I'll just pick whatever the first thing is. Okay, let's just pick the pencil. I cheated. And I'm just going to put over here. Now let's run this and see the final look of this app. Wonderful. So now this is actually a nice text field that we can use. All of them we can actually use. It's just honestly a matter of your preferences and your design. I actually like this one. I also like that one. I would personally avoid using that orange or huge one. I don't like it that much, but what I would definitely use is probably this one or that one. I just feel like they're much comfortable for the eye to look at. Let me know which one you would use in the app. Let me know if this was a good tutorial, if it wasn't, or if you would have wanted to see more designs. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope I see you again later.